on Best of the Valley Shore. Don DeCesare here with you in the midday period. And, of course, as you know, magically, mystically, and digitally back with you in the evening on the weekends in the middle of the night. I am here for you whenever you need me. Great to have you folks on board Mondays and Fridays. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're not able to be with us when we're here, don't fret. We've got you covered in the archive. So you go to WLISWMRD.net, you click the on-demand button, and you're going to find this conversation and all of our local conversations stored there for your convenience. And this is one, I promise you, that you will want to listen to again, and you will certainly want to tell friends, neighbors, and spouses about it as well, because I have an opportunity to visit today with the president and CEO of the Nutmeg State Financial Credit Union, John Holt. John, thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me, Don.
It's a pleasure. And we wanted to have you come in because you're an expert in matters financial. And an awful lot of folks remain somewhat confused about these things these days because there's so much going on with tax cuts and budgets and all of that sort of thing. So I thought we would get you in here and do a little nuts and bolts.
I appreciate that.
If you don't mind. And the first nut that I want to crack with you, so to speak, I think I know the difference, but there are probably some folks out there who are still a little bit confused about the difference between a financial credit union and a bank.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you just give us a thumbnail on that?
Yeah, so great question, and we hear that a lot. I think a long time ago, their credit unions were really kind of for specific companies and their employees only. For unions, you had to belong to a certain type of organization to be part of a credit union, and that landscape has changed dramatically. And today we are very similar to a bank. The makeup of what we look like physically, our branches, our products and services, what we offer are the same. The difference is that we are a local, homegrown organization that really derived, in Nutmeg's case, from the days of the Hartford Telephone Company. Those employees started a credit union, and today we're a full community credit union. The biggest difference that I would be able to tell you is that we're a not-for-profit organization. So where a bank is owned by its stockholders or shareholders, we are owned by our depositors or our members. So when you open an account with us, you become a member, you have voting rights in the organization, you are part of that organization, and because we're not-for-profit, we don't have to pay federal taxes, so we can pass those savings on to our members in the way of higher rates on deposit accounts, lower rates on loans, and little to no fees. We have expenses we have to pay for, people we have to hire, we have to compete with banks, certainly. So, but we're able to do that, and oftentimes credit unions always have better rates.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, for example, if you were to make money on a loan, which presumably you would like to do, because you have to, as you say, underwrite all these expenses, you can plow some of that back into either lower rate for the loan or higher rate for the savings accounts, let's say?
Right. Yeah. And, so again, we have expenses to pay for. We have the same things that that most organizations have, human resource costs, building costs, supply costs, whatever. And we have to be competitive with banks because we're in that landscape. We are, they have branches across the street, they have loans. And of course, as you probably know nowadays, there's other companies, Amazon's getting into banking, Walmart's getting into banking. People have all these options that we have to compete with.
Right.
But we still are a not-for-profit, and we still, with the tax advantage that we have, we pass on that savings to the members in the terms of, little to no fees, higher rates on deposit accounts, lower rates on loans. It's a proven fact.
Great. Well, I I have seen your branches, of course, and been in one or two over the years. But just as a courtesy here, because you've been so kind to give us some time to talk about some other things that we will get into, let me ask you, how many branches do you have and where are they?
So we have 10 branches, and I'm going to try to remember all of them.
Oh, okay.
So we've opened some in the southern part of the state recently. We have some in ShopRite and Stratford and in Orange.
No kidding. Really? That's a good idea.
And we also have one in a Walmart in Cromwell.
Mm-hmm.
We just recently opened a branch in Milford, and that is shared with Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV Express. We have a branch in Rocky Hill. We have a branch in New Britain. We have a branch in Glastonbury. We have a branch in Manchester. We have a branch in Hartford. And we have a branch in West Hartford.
All right. Well, we'll hope that some of our listeners will want to check those out. And before we conclude, I'll ask you about the website and all that in case folks want to check it out that way. But thank you again for being here. So let's dig in a little bit into some of the issues that people worry about. And with respect to current financial affairs, I'll give you one that I worry about. I'm pretty savvy with computers, so I don't have the fear of computers that some people still have, but I do worry when I go online and I go into a financial account that I have and I say, whoa, all these stories about people, breaking into these things, the Russians and all that stuff. How do you feel about security for online banking, and how do you protect your shareholders, your subscribers, members? How do you protect your members?
Yeah, so that is a great question, and we are highly and heavily regulated by the state, by the federal government. As you might imagine, it's people's money. So we have probably more checks and balances in place than certainly retailers do, which in most cases they don't have any.
Yeah.
So we are regulated and audited on those things. We have to have layer upon layer of security, layer upon layer of checks and balances with regard to the technology and being able to penetrate. We have so much that's put into place that certainly the risk is very minimal in terms of anything happening. And I always compare it to the risk is certainly a lot less than if you were to get something in the mail. It was to get lost. The envelope was to be opened. Somebody was to take out the statement. Somebody was to take your mail out of your mailbox and open it with all of that information. That is 10 times more of a risk as far as I'm concerned than going online, going through an internet banking with authentication features and factors, with PIN numbers, with so many layers of security that's in there, that I find the risk much less than anything that if you got in your mailbox.
Well, I appreciate that, and I mentioned I do myself do online financial work, but I think about it, and I think we all should. I wonder, how does it affect the back office, so to speak, of what you're doing? That's obviously an extra cost that wasn't in place 20 years ago, where you've got to have security people and internet specialists who understand security, and I don't know what other kind of back office issues. Has that been a drain a little bit on your financials?
It's certainly, I think for all financial institutions, it's an expense, much more than, again, your retail organization or companies that aren't in the financial business. But again, we're so heavily regulated and monitored. And of course, even without those regulations, we certainly want to make sure people are comfortable using our electronic products and services and that they're not uncomfortable. So we have just, again, so many layers of the security there. And we, and certainly in terms of Nutmeg, because we consider ourselves a technology company as well as a credit union, we have probably gone the extra mile from what most banks and credit unions have in terms of security, because that's our focus, it's our strategy. So we want to make sure that people are absolutely comfortable in knowing that we have all of these things in place, because the last thing we want is anything to happen.
I think I'm inferring from the way you're talking that you do online.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
if I wasn't working for a financial institution, I wouldn't go into a branch. And I'm Gen X, so I appreciate the technology. I find that it creates a level of convenience for me. It saves me time. It saves me money from having to drive someplace. We welcome people in our branches because we like the interaction. We like the community of it. But it's such a time saver with these electronic services, things that I never saw when I was growing up. And I think to myself now, I'm like, wow, if I only had a cell phone when I was in school to use, because it does make your life a lot easier. And, I even think of being able to deposit checks using your mobile device.
Right.
I mean, how amazing is that?
Well, you can look across all your accounts, which I find to be a useful tool as well. You can remember, oh, yes, I have this much in a savings account, or I have this much in my checking account, or wait a minute, I've got my end of the month bills coming up. I got to move some money from one to the other to be sure that it's covered, especially if you have automatic bill pay, which some people do.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's all of these things that, are offered, bill pay, any of these types of products and services that really, I think, kind of help really ultimately save you time. I mean, and it's getting more and more to the point where a lot of this is electronic. I mean, you can make your payments now if you go to a retailer through like an Apple Pay, which we have for all of our members.
Good. Now, do you have some sense, just ballpark, what percentage of your transactions now are being done online versus in the branch?
Well, I can tell you this one statistic that I know for sure. We have seen about a 30% drop in the traffic in our branches over the last couple of years. So, and most of that has migrated to the electronic channels, because I think people realize once they try it and use it and they're educated on it and they start feeling more comfortable, it certainly does save time. We're building branches, as I mentioned to you. We're adding them, but they do not have the traffic that they did because there's all of these opportunities to do your banking electronically. So, but I would say probably a good solid 50% increase over the last couple of years in electronic services. In fact, most of the memberships that we open for people, we don't rarely see them in the branch. People come into a branch when they have a challenge, they need advice. Sometimes we can even open accounts online.
Sure.
You can apply for a loan online. So it's very rare that they come in there to cash a check. And I'm not saying that they don't come in.
Right.
Because there's still people that are more comfortable with that for various reasons. But it's a time saver.
Absolutely. I'm visiting here today on Best of the Valley Shore with John Holt, who is President and CEO of the Nutmeg State Financial Credit Union, and we really appreciate his taking some time to visit with us here today so we can talk about these matters financial. John, you can relax for a second because it's time for the Best of the Valley Shore Show Orchestra, Marching Band, Rock Group, Gospel Choir, Salsa Band, and Folk Group, Kazoo Chorus, even occasional jazz ensemble. They're going to visit us here in the studio. They're going to play energetically because they heard you were here and they think, oh, there's a potential gig here. And it's not going to work out for them, John, because they're not very good. But we're going to let them play. That's the American way. And then we'll get them out of here quickly so we can hear from a couple of underwriters of this extravaganza, which is important. And everyone will listen closely to what they have to say. And then John Holt and I will be right back. Please stay right there.
Before heading out for your vacation, get your car serviced at Personal Auto Care. Oil changes are reasonably priced and include a battery test. Just this simple service can save you from breaking down while you're on vacation. Sometimes problems show up when doing an oil change. Of course, when you come in for the service, they'll ask you if you have any concerns. Call Personal Auto Care today at 860-347-9845 for your appointment, so you can keep on smiling.
Our free checking includes free debit card, free first order checks, free Essex web banking, free electronic bill payment, and more. There are no service charges, no fees. These features make this checking account perfect for leaving your other bank without incurring any cost to open this account. At Essex Savings Bank, really free checking really means that.
Essex Savings Bank, Bankers who care.
Member FDIC.
Oh, you want the best food fresh on a daily basis? Well, that's Pasta Vita. Dozens of entrees, appetizers, both specially ordered and every day. That's Pasta Vita. Green salads, pasta salads, breads, desserts. That's Pasta Vita. Yeah, that beautiful building with the best staff in the world inside. Yeah, that's Pasta Vita too. 225 Elm Street in Old Saybrook. Also visible, of course, at pastavita.com or give them a call at 860-395-1452. For Pasta Vita.
I'm Attorney General George Jepson. Nowadays, all of you have to worry about cybersecurity. Hackers are always looking for new ways to break into our computers. Hackers use pirate websites to infect your computer and steal your ID and financial information, or even take over your computer camera without you knowing it. Don't let hackers into your house. Be careful with the websites you visit, and warn your kids on how to stay safe online.
To learn more, visit ct.gov/AG. Sponsored by Digital Citizens Alliance and the Connecticut Association of Broadcasters in cooperation with this station.
Here we are once again on Best of the Valley Shore. Don DeCesare is my name. I'll bet you know who you are. It's great to have you folks with me here on the program on Mondays and Fridays from 12:30 to 1 and 6:30 to 7. Please join us whenever you can. Tell your friends, neighbors, and spouses about it as well, because we have some great conversations with great local people. That's why we call it the Best of the Valley Shore, because we get the best people in here to talk with you about all sorts of things. And today, I've got one of them here, and I'm very pleased to meet him and to introduce him to you, and that's John Holt, who is President and CEO of the Nutmeg State Financial Credit Union. And we're talking a little bit about matters financial and how they particularly pertain to all of us as consumers, and in the case of the credit union, members who can participate. John, before I get lost in my questions with you again, I promised earlier that I was going to ask you to give folks information about your website, because they may want to get more information about what you do, how you do it, how they can become a member themselves, and of course where they can come if they want to come in person. So give me a little hint on how to get to your website.
Yeah, so our website is nutmegstatefcu.org, all one word.
Okay.
There's a plethora of information on our products and services, our locations, what we're all about, who we are, our rates. So a great place to find out a lot of stuff about us.
Okay, nutmegstatefcu.org.
You got it.
All right, or you can go to one of those search engines and put in Nutmeg State Credit Union. You'll come up that way as well. All right, well, that's great. I hope folks will check that out. So getting back to the issues of the day, when you find yourself talking with, let's say, a new member, what's the first thing they say to you? They say, "Hey, John, nice to meet you," and then they ask you a question. What's that question?
I think most of the time, believe it or not, the questions that I get are, what is a credit union and how is it different than a bank? Mm-hmm. I actually think that's the most common question that I've had, which we've addressed. And, I say, again, we're the same as a bank. And I point out the fact that we're local. We are involved in a lot of communities. We belong to a lot of different organizations. We sponsor a lot of events in and around all of the areas that we have branches and that we serve. And I always point out, too, that the difference I find is that we're local. The bigger banks are not headquartered here. They don't have a presence here. Their executive staff isn't here. Their board isn't here. Our entire executive team is headquartered in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. Our board is all local. They're affiliated with different organizations and communities throughout Connecticut. So I think we understand the communities probably best. And I like to always point those things out to them when they don't understand the differences. And how often do we talk about the bank mergers? Farmington Bank was just acquired by People's United.
Right.
There goes another local community bank. And we will always remain the way we are because of our structure and the way we're set up. So I think that's a clear advantage that people, it resonates with them.
I was talking recently with a local business person, and we were chatting about matters financial, and I asked, what do you think the biggest issue is? And this person said to me, paperwork, and particularly in reference to the bigger banks, where there are layers and layers and layers of paperwork, and sometimes that paperwork is being done all the way across the country. My loan is being approved by some woman in San Francisco. Nothing personal against that nice lady who's, I'm sure, a professional person, but you have a tough time getting them on the phone. They're in a different time zone. It can be a little stressful.
Mm-hmm. And certainly the paperwork I can appreciate, because you think to yourself, okay, we have all this technology. Why is there paperwork? But I will say regulations, when it comes to that. And a lot of the paperwork that we have, in some cases, unfortunately, is required by the state and federal governments that have been put into place. We try to keep the paperwork to a minimum. We try to make it easy and have a great experience. Like if you were to apply for a loan, you would be able to do it over your email, and you would be able to assign electronically, send the paperwork back electronically, and your loan would be funded. We try to make things as easy as possible. But we are regulated, and a lot of that paperwork comes from those types of things.
Is your principal regulation from the state of Connecticut or the federal government, or both?
So we are regulated by the state of Connecticut, the state banking department, and we play into the federal government side because the federal government, the NCUA, insures the member deposits. Like the FDIC would for banks, it's the NCUA for credit unions. So they're part of the governance model as it relates to that.
When people are thinking about placing their money in a credit union, and particularly in your credit union, and they then go ahead and start doing that, do they need to be a little bit concerned about access? Or do you have essentially the same access to their funds, access as you would at any other bank or financial institution?
And I think that's the beauty of our focus on the technology, because we have all of the things that the big banks have. Bank of America, a Liberty Bank, a Chase. We have the online banking, the bill pay, transferring between accounts online, the mobile app, the mobile deposit feature where you can take pictures of your check. You can get into your account online. There's so many things. We have alerts that you can set up. Then anytime you do a transaction on your credit card, your debit card, on your account, you get alerts that those transactions have posted to your account, so that in the event of a security issue, you would know right away that something has happened. So we have all of the things that the large banks do, and we believe better, because we've tailored the experience and we've built it from the knowledge and the feedback from the local community.
All right. I'm going to ask you to help a listener out there. I don't know who it is, but there's a listener out there listening to us right now who is concerned about the finances of their children, let's say, even adult children. And they're wondering, how can I sort of get them some discipline? What would you recommend?
I think that's one of the things where we certainly have a lot of things, that the products and services that we have things where we know, like the grandparents, the parents like to train or educate their children or their grandchildren. We have kids accounts that kind of helps the younger folks learn how to save early on. We have accounts that are built for the younger generation that tailors to the electronic use. We have a lot of information, a lot of marketing material that explains it. But I always say the best way to do it is come and see us. And that's kind of what our branches are for, that consultative approach. Bring the kids in, bring the grandkids in. Let us talk through it with them. Let us talk to you and kind of find out what your needs are, what you're thinking, what you're trying to accomplish, and that's where our banking consultants can kind of help and steer you in the right direction, because I think everyone's situation is probably a little different, but certainly we're there to be part of the community to educate, and so we say call us up, come in and talk to us. There's some information again on the website that has a lot of information, but let us try to figure out what's best for you, and there's usually always alternatives.
When I was a kid, of course that was during the Harding administration, but when I was a kid, my mother had me set up a Christmas club account, and I used to put 50 cents of I got $1 allowance, and she insisted that I put 50 cents a week into my Christmas club, so I had $25 at the end of the year. Those were different times, of course, but it did establish a certain discipline and give me a sense that a financial institution was not, an imposing, unfriendly place. So I don't know if that was what she was thinking when she did it, but it turned out well.
Yeah, so we have accounts like that too. We have that holiday club account. We have the kids clubs for kids savings. We have of course certificates of deposit. So if you're looking to invest money and you don't want it to be touched, and if you try to withdraw it, there's a penalty. We have all of those types of products. So we have those savings vehicles that are built for people. We have I always think of the checking account, because we find as we go into schools throughout the area or talk with organizations about financial literacy, it's amazing how many people that are growing up now really don't understand what a checking account is, how the debit card works. So we try to educate folks on that. We try to make these products as simple as we possibly can, and we try to make sure when they use it, they're making some money on it.
That's a good
obviously, idea. When you see if you put money in your account, you're making some money off of it, you're making some interest, it certainly kind of helps. So
I would think that it does. So you certainly can cater some of your products to the younger folks, to the younger generation, and help them to learn some discipline, as I did way back when. And I would think also the alternative is true as well, that as folks get to be a little bit more senior, let's say, and they may have a little fear of some of these electronic things, but you can help walk them through that too, I would hope.
Yeah, we can walk them through it over the phone. We can walk them through it if they come into a branch. We could even, step them through it over a video call if that was something that was necessary. We kind of try to do that. We kind of try to create a good experience and, kind of make it work for people.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of great folks as your colleagues there at the Nutmeg State Financial Credit Union. So thank you so much for that. Thank them, of course.
Absolutely.
And you're a terrific spokesman. I hope that we can impose upon you to come back from time to time and talk about some of the matters financial that we don't get to as often as we probably should. So thank you for that.
Can I just mention one more thing?
Please.
I think it's for a lot of those listeners out there, it's a little bit about the rate environment right now. We're seeing some rising rates. So I encourage everyone to go on our website and check out some of our CD specials. We have a very unique product that's coming out. It's called a liquid CD. It's very similar to a money market. You have some flexibility of making deposits throughout the year. You have flexibility of taking the money out when you need it. And I want them to go on the website to see the amazing rate, because it's a 12-month CD. So things are changing in that environment. I know a lot of the folks in the older demographic have probably been waiting for this.
Yeah.
We're seeing it happen now. So we want your deposits, so bring them in.
All right. Well, thanks to John Holt, President and CEO of Nutmeg State Financial Credit Union. John, you, of course, are in charge over there. I'm in charge over here. And that means I get to issue orders. So be prepared here, John, and all of my listeners out there as well. Here comes an order for all of you, and that is, be good to one another. We'll see you again next time on Best of the Valley Shore. Bye-bye now.